The Invincible Armada. The galaxy trembled whenever the Armada arrived. Worlds went silent, stars seemed colder, and entire civilizations shut down their defenses before the first shot was fired. The alien Armada was more than a fleet. It was a storm made of steel, fire, and arrogance. They claimed themselves as the undefeated masters of the stars. For generations they had crushed every rival, leaving ruins in their path. Their banners hung above broken planets. Their songs of victory echoed across galaxies. They believed they could never be stopped. The Armada was vast beyond counting. Thousands of warships moved as one. A swarm of destruction. Every ship was armed with weapons strong enough to destroy continents. Their shields glowed like suns. Their engines left trails of fire. Other species spoke their name only in whispers. To resist the Armada was to invite extinction, so most worlds bent their knees, offered tribute, and prayed they would be spared. The alien leaders were proud and cruel. They looked at the galaxy as a garden to pluck and consume. To them, every other race was weak. They mocked those who still dared to dream of freedom. Invincible, they said. Unstoppable, they laughed. Their arrogance grew with every victory. They thought themselves immortal. But pride always blinds even the strongest in the dark halls of the command ship. The High Admiral stood before a wall of stars, his eyes burned with hunger for conquest. Reports came from scouts that another small species was rising on the edge of known space. Humans. The Admiral scoffed at the name. To him, humanity was nothing but another weak race, fragile and untested. The Council laughed when the subject was raised. No one believed humans could stand against the storm of the Armada, yet whispers began to spread. Merchant fleets spoke of a strange warship, a vessel unlike any they had seen before. It traveled alone, silent and watchful. Some claimed it destroyed raider groups in seconds. Others swore it vanished into the void as if it was a ghost. The stories were dismissed as lies, but deep inside, unease stirred. The Admiral ignored these rumors. He declared a campaign to crush humanity before they could rise any higher. A single strike will break their spirit, he said with confidence. Orders spread through the Armada. Thousands of ships turned their course toward human space. Their engines lit up the void like a river of fire. To the galaxy, it seemed only another routine conquest. But to those who still hoped for freedom, it felt different, as if fate was waiting in silence. In the outer systems, alien commanders prepared their forces. They laughed at the thought of humans resisting. To them, the war was already won. They saw humanity as ants facing a storm. But ants, when cornered, have teeth. The galaxy did not know it yet, but this storm would not pass like others. This time, the prey would bite back. The Armada was drunk with power. Each alien officer believed victory was certain. They had never tasted defeat. They had never seen their ships fall in flames. Their pride was their armor, their arrogance their shield, and they believed no enemy could pierce it. As the fleets gathered, as weapons were readied, the galaxy held its breath. No one dared to speak of the human warship, for to even name it felt like tempting the wrath of the Invincible Armada. The humans, however, were silent. They watched from the shadows, their eyes cold, their resolve unbroken. The alien Armada did not know it yet, but their path was leading them toward a war unlike any they had fought before. And in the darkness of space, the whisper of one ship waited. A ship built not for conquest but for survival. A ship forged in the fire of a species that had endured everything. The storm believed itself unstoppable, but soon, it would meet the unyielding heart of humanity. The Invincible Armada marched forward, but somewhere, hidden among the stars, a human warship powered up its engines, its crew silent, its weapons ready. It was only one ship, but it carried the weight of an entire world. The galaxy did not know yet, but history was about to change forever. Humanity's secret weapon fare from the eyes of the alien Armada. Humanity worked in silence. They had been ignored for centuries, dismissed as a young race, unworthy of notice, but humans were not weak. They were builders, dreamers, and survivors. They had faced wars on their own world, storms, disasters, and endless struggles, and through every trial they grew stronger. Unlike other species, humans did not fear hardship. They learned from it in secret. They prepared something the galaxy had never seen. Deep in the hidden shipyards of Earth's moon, a warship was born. It was not the largest, not the brightest, not even the most beautiful, but it was alive with human spirit. It carried weapons forged from lessons of survival, shields woven from centuries of innovation, and engines that burned with relentless fury. The ship had no name to outsiders, but to its crew it was called the Guardian. The Guardian was humanity's answer to fear. Other races had begged for mercy, bowed their heads and prayed to survive. But humanity did not kneel. They built a blade instead, a single ship to cut through the arrogance of the Armada. Many doubted it would ever be enough. But those who stepped aboard knew one truth. Humans did not fight with numbers. They fought with will. The crew of the Guardian were not famous heroes. They were farmers' sons, miners' daughters, engineers, soldiers, and wanderers. They came from every corner of Earth, united by one mission. They swore an oath not to victory but to endurance, to stand even when the universe told them to fall. Their captain was a quiet man, not loud, not proud, but his silence carried weight. His eyes spoke of storms endured. The crew trusted him, for he was like them, human in every scar. The alien spies who caught sight of the Guardian returned with trembling words. They reported a strange design, human yet alien in shape, its hull dark, absorbing light, its weapons hidden beneath layers of armor, its power core thrumming like a beating heart. The alien commanders mocked the reports. A single warship cannot defeat us, they laughed. But their laughter was thin. Behind closed doors, doubt began to grow. The Guardian's first test came in silence. Pirates had raided the outer colonies, expecting easy prey. They did not return. Their wrecks floated in the void, cut apart with precision. No one saw the battle, only the aftermath. And whispers began to spread. A human ghost ship, some said. A phantom of war, others claimed. The galaxy listened, and fear stirred like embers under ash. Inside the Guardian, life was not easy. The crew worked in shadows. Far from their homes, supplies were scarce. Air recycled, food rationed, but no one complained. They laughed together, fought together, and endured together. Their ship was more than steel. It was a bond. Each person carried the weight of Earth on their shoulders, and none were willing to drop it. The alien armada, unaware of the truth, continued to advance. Their High Admiral saw humanity as nothing more than another victory. But in the void, fate was shaping a different story. The Guardian did not march with armies. It did not boast with numbers. It moved alone, silent as the night, waiting for the moment to strike. The galaxy had seen countless wars, but no one expected this. A single ship, born of desperation, powered by human spirit, was about to challenge an empire of thousands. The aliens claimed invincibility, but humanity had built something they did not understand, something the galaxy had never feared before. A weapon not of steel alone, but of will. And in the silence of deep space, the Guardian waited, its engines cold, its crew steady, watching as the storm of the Invincible Armada drew closer. The aliens laughed at the idea of resistance, but soon laughter would turn to silence and silence to fear. For the Guardian was not just a ship, it was a promise that humanity would never kneel. And when the Armada finally met it, they would learn what that promise meant. First clash in the void, the alien Armada moved through the stars like a wall of fire. Thousands of ships cutting across the black void, their engines glowing like rivers of molten steel. Everywhere they went, silence followed. No species dared to stand in their way. No fleet dared to block their path. But hidden in the shadows of an asteroid belt, the Guardian waited, its dark hull blended with the rocks, its lights dimmed, its crew silent. This was the place. This was where humanity would speak without words. The first alien scouts entered the belt. Fast frigates with long sensors and sharp weapons. They laughed as they scanned the empty stones. To them, it was only another search, another routine hunt, but then, one by one, their signals vanished, no cries for help, no warnings, just silence. Inside the Guardian, alarms glowed softly. The captain stood calm, his voice steady as he gave orders. The crew moved like a single heartbeat, hands on controls, eyes sharp, nerves iron. They did not scream. They did not panic. This was the moment they had trained for. Their ship roared alive, engines lit like fire, and the hunter became the hunted. An alien cruiser entered the belt, its weapons hot, but before it could lock fire, the Guardian struck. A beam tore across its shields, slicing them apart. Torpedoes followed, silent shadows cutting into its hull. The cruiser split in two, flames spilling into the void. The Armada's laughter ended in shock. Reports rushed back to the Admiral. "A ship," the officers whispered. "A single ship destroyed our squadron," the Admiral snarled, refusing to believe it. "Send more," he commanded, and more came. Dozens of alien warships swarmed the asteroid belt. Their weapons lit the rocks, their fury shook the stars. But the Guardian did not run. It danced, slipping between shadows, vanishing behind asteroids, reappearing only to strike. Plasma burned, lasers cut. Explosions bloomed like stars. Every shot was precise, every move was sharp. The aliens fired wildly, destroying their own comrades in their rage. But the human warship cut them down. One by one on the Guardian's bridge, sweat ran down the crew's faces. Hands trembled, lungs burned, but no one stopped. They knew every second mattered. Every breath counted. And they fought not for glory, but for survival. The captain's voice was steady. "Hold the line," he said. "Make them fear us," and they did. For the first time in history, the Armada felt fear. Their ships, once unstoppable, now burned in the void. Wrecks floated where their pride had been, and whispers spread through the fleet. "This cannot be," they said. "No single ship can do this," but the truth was before them. Burning in the dark, yet the Guardian was not untouched. Its hull cracked, its shields bleeding light. The crew pushed harder. Fixing damage as they fought, they refused to fall. Every spark in the engine room was a promise. Every wound on the ship was a scar of defiance. They were human, and humans endured. The Admiral, furious and shaken, ordered his fleets to surround the belt. He wanted the Phantom trapped. But when the alien ships closed in, they found only silence. The Guardian was gone, vanished into the void, leaving behind only wreckage and fear. In the darkness, the human ship drifted quietly. Engines cold, weapons silent, the crew exhausted but alive. Their ship battered but unbroken. They had faced the storm and survived. And in that survival, they had done more than win a battle. They had broken a myth. The alien Armada was no longer invincible. Their pride had cracked. Their fear had begun. And somewhere in the endless void, the Guardian prepared for the next strike. The galaxy watched in silence for the first time. Hope flickered in the hearts of the oppressed. A hope carried by one ship, one crew, and one human promise. The first clash in the void had ended. But war was only beginning. And the Armada, once certain of victory, now whispered a question they had never dared before. What if we lose? Fear in the invincible. The alien Armada had never known silence. They had marched across galaxies with thunder, with fire, with songs of conquest, but now, silence lingered inside their command ships. Their voices were low, their eyes restless, because for the first time, something they could not explain had struck them. A single ship, a human ship, had destroyed their vanguard and vanished. And the word they had never used before began to spread among them. Fear. The High Admiral stood at the center of the council chamber, his armor polished, his eyes burning. He spoke of strength, of pride, of the invincible Armada. Yet even as he shouted, the commanders avoided his gaze. They remembered the wreckage floating in the void. They remembered how dozens of their ships had fallen to one. Whispers carried through the ranks. Phantom, some said, ghost ship. Others muttered. And soldiers who once laughed at humanity now lowered their voices. Orders went out. Fleets doubled their patrols. Scouts swept every corner of space, but the Guardian was never found. It struck when least expected, destroying a supply convoy, shattering a fleet formation, and then disappearing again. The Armada was built to crush armies, not to fight shadows, and the more they chased, the more they failed. Inside the alien barracks, fear spread like poison. Soldiers refused to sleep. Eyes darted at every sound. Every flicker on the screen was seen as the human ship. Every silence in the comms felt like death approaching. Commanders grew harsh, punishing any sign of weakness. But even they could not hide the trembling in their own hands. The invincible Armada was bleeding, not in numbers, but in spirit. The High Admiral raged. "They are only humans," he roared. "A young species, a weak species, nothing more." But deep inside, even he felt the weight of doubt. For if humanity was truly weak, how had they built a ship that shattered fleets? How had they trained a crew that refused to fall, and how had fear, real fear, taken root in warriors who once thought themselves gods? In the shadows of the galaxy, the Guardian sailed, its hull scarred, its crew weary. Yet their eyes burned with determination. They knew the truth. The war was no longer about numbers. It was about belief. The Armada believed they could not be defeated. But every strike from the Guardian tore that belief apart, bit by bit, battle by battle. The humans were reshaping the galaxy with silence and shadows. Inside the Guardian, the crew felt the weight of their mission. They were tired, supplies thin, repairs endless, but no one spoke of giving up. Each scar on their ship was a story of survival. Each battle a reminder that they carried the hope of an entire species. Their captain walked the corridors, speaking little, but when his eyes met theirs, it was enough. His silence told them, stand strong, endure, fight, and they did. Meanwhile, the galaxy watched. Enslaved worlds whispered of the human warship. They told stories in secret. Stories of a ship that struck against gods and lived. For the first time, the oppressed dreamed. Maybe the Armada was not eternal. Maybe empires could fall, and in the dark, hope grew like fire in dry grass. Back in the Armada's heart, division spread. Some commanders demanded retreat. Others called for total annihilation. They shouted, they argued, their unity cracking. The High Admiral silenced them with threats, but even his threats could not mend broken pride. Every destroyed ship was a wound. Every rumor of the Guardian was salt on that wound. And though they still claimed invincibility, they whispered doubts when the lights were low. The Guardian had done more than fight. It had pierced the heart of arrogance, and once pride is wounded, it never fully heals. The Invincible Armada marched on. Yes, but their steps were no longer filled with certainty. Their songs no longer rang with confidence, and in their silence the humans found strength in the void. The Guardian drifted quietly, watching, waiting, hunting. The captain stood at the window, eyes on the endless stars. He knew the war was far from over. The Armada was still vast, still deadly, still proud, but now, they were no longer untouchable. Their fear was the opening, and humanity would drive that opening wider. The Invincible were no longer invincible, and the galaxy could feel it. History had begun to shift, because one ship, one crew, one human promise was enough to turn fear against the mighty, and fear, once planted, would never stop growing. Humanity's true nature, the galaxy thought it knew humans. They were seen as small, fragile, unimportant, a race late to the stars, clumsy compared to ancient empires. But those who judged them by their size did not understand their nature. Humans were not shaped by comfort. They were forged in struggle. Their history was not of peace, but of storms, wars, famine, disasters, endless challenges. And every time the world tried to break them, they stood up again inside the Guardian. That truth lived in every crew member. They were not chosen for strength alone. They were chosen because they carried scars. Each had endured loss, pain, hardship, yet none had broken. A miner's son who had dug through cave-ins to save his family. A farmer's daughter who had survived droughts and still planted seeds. A soldier who had fought hopeless battles and returned alive. An engineer who had lost a city but built homes again. They were ordinary yet extraordinary. Because humanity had always been this way. The captain understood this. He was not the loudest voice, not the fiercest warrior, but his silence held the weight of a man who had endured. His crew trusted him not because he promised victory, but because he promised they would endure no matter what. And endurance was stronger than any weapon. When the alien armada struck again, they came with fury, with hundreds of ships. They wanted to erase the ghost ship from the stars. They wanted to prove the stories wrong, but the Guardian did not meet them with numbers. It met them with will in the void. The human ship danced once more, shields cracked, weapons burned. The hull shook, but the crew did not falter. Every scar on the ship became a reminder. Every wound became proof they still stood. In the heat of battle, something became clear. Humans did not fight to destroy, they fought to survive. And survival made them dangerous. Because when survival is all you have, you do not surrender. The aliens threw fleet after fleet, but each time, the Guardian clawed its way through, bleeding, breaking, yet never falling. In the Council of the Oppressed Species, whispers grew louder. They do not fight like us, one elder said. They fight like fire, another whispered. To them, fire was the only word strong enough. Humans burned when struck, but the fire spread. They endured loss, but from loss came strength, and the galaxy, watching in silence, began to hope. Inside the Armada, pride turned to unease. They had never seen such defiance. Every species before had bent the knee, but humans refused. And that refusal cut deeper than any weapon. For how could the Invincible Armada remain invincible? If a single ship dared to say no, the High Admiral tried to rally his commanders. He spoke of strength, of crushing humanity with overwhelming force, but even his words felt hollow. Behind his speeches, fear crept in, for every destroyed human ship should have ended the fight. Yet this one still lived, and worse. It fought harder with every wound in the void. The Guardian's crew patched holes. They welded torn plates, they rewired burning circuits. They carried the ship back from the edge of death again and again. Their bodies were tired, their hands blistered. Their lungs burned from smoke, but they laughed in the mess hall. They sang songs of earth, songs of rivers, mountains, and skies. Songs that reminded them what they fought for. Their enemy had numbers, but humans had memory, love, and hope. And these were weapons no fleet could measure. The galaxy began to understand. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the oldest, but they were the most stubborn. They refused to stay down, and that refusal was what made them terrifying. In the aftermath of another battle, the Guardian drifted through wreckage, alien ships broken, bodies silent. Yet the human ship, though scarred and bleeding, still lived. The crew stood on its bridge, their eyes weary but bright. They had endured again, and they knew they would endure tomorrow. The alien armada claimed invincibility, but now their pride was hollow, because against humanity invincibility meant nothing, for humans did not fight for glory. They fought because they always had, and that truth was beginning to shatter the armada more than any weapon could. Shattered pride, the armada had been humiliated, scouts destroyed, fleets shattered, convoys burned, yet still they claimed invincibility. The High Admiral stood before his commanders, his voice sharp as steel. "This ends now," he said. His pride demanded a final show of power, so he summoned the greatest ship of their empire, the Dreadnought flagship, a fortress in the void. It was larger than cities, its cannons strong enough to crack planets, its armor layered in endless steel. It had never lost a battle to the aliens. It was the proof of their supremacy. When the Dreadnought emerged from hyperspace, the stars seemed to bow. Its shadow covered the smaller ships around it. Its engines burned brighter than suns. The alien crews cheered, their fear fading in its presence. Surely no human ship could stand against this. Surely the Phantom would be erased in a single strike. But far in the darkness, the Guardian waited, its hull cracked, its shields weakened, its weapons worn. Yet its crew stood ready. They had endured too much to kneel now. The captain looked at his people. Their eyes tired but steady, he spoke softly. "This is the storm we were born to face," and they answered with silence. The silence of trust. The battle began with thunder. The Dreadnought opened fire. Beams cut across space like burning rivers. The Guardian shook as its shields groaned. Alarms screamed, metal bent, sparks flew. But the human ship did not fall. It moved with speed, slipping between blasts, returning fire with precision. Its cannons struck like hammers. Its torpedoes darted like vipers. Yet against the fortress, the blows seemed small. Alien crews laughed again. "Look at it," they said. A child striking a mountain. But then the mountain bled. A weak point torn by a precise strike. A secondary gun destroyed. A shield array failing, the Dreadnought rumbled, and the laughter turned uneasy. The High Admiral roared. All guns on the human ship. Thousands of weapons locked onto the Guardian. The void lit up with fire, and the human ship was swallowed in light. For a moment silence, then from the smoke it emerged, scarred, burning, but alive and still fighting. Inside the Guardian, chaos reigned. Smoke filled the corridors. Sparks rained from broken panels. Crew members dragged wounded comrades, engineers patched ruptures with bare hands, but no one abandoned their post. Their ship was breaking, but their spirit was not, and with every breath, every heartbeat they pushed forward. The captain ordered a daring move. "Close the distance," he said. The crew obeyed. The Guardian dived straight toward the Dreadnought. Alien commanders screamed in disbelief. "Madness," they cried, but the humans did not stop. Their ship slipped under the fortress's guns. Striking at its vulnerable underbelly, torpedoes pierced deeper. Explosions bloomed inside the giant. The Dreadnought roared in pain. Its shields flickered, its armor cracked. The Admiral bellowed commands, but his words could not stop the truth. His pride was breaking. His invincible fortress was bleeding before the galaxy's eyes. With one final strike, the Guardian unleashed its last torpedo, a desperate shot aimed at the Dreadnought's heart. The weapon struck true. A chain of explosions tore through the fortress. Flames burst from its hull, engines died. Weapons silenced, and then, with a soundless scream, the Dreadnought split apart. A giant falling into darkness. Silence followed. The alien fleets, once proud, once loud, now drifted in shock. Their flagship, their symbol of power, was gone. The Invincible Armada had been broken. Their pride shattered. Their fear complete inside the Guardian. The crew stood battered but alive. Their ship hung in ruins, but it still breathed. They had faced the mountain and brought it down. Not with numbers, not with size, but with will, human will. The galaxy watched. Species long enslaved wept with hope for the first time. They saw the Armada run, ships retreating, engines burning with panic, and they whispered a new truth. The Armada was not eternal. It could be defeated, and humanity had proven it. The captain stood silent at the window. The stars reflected in his tired eyes. Behind him, his crew sat. Wounded, weary, but smiling, they knew what had happened. They had shattered the pride of gods and changed history forever. A new dawn. The galaxy had lived in shadow for centuries. Under the rule of the Invincible Armada, hope had withered. Worlds knelt without question. Voices of freedom silenced, but now, something new spread across the stars. Not the roar of conquest, but the whisper of change. A single human warship had shattered the pride of gods, and that truth traveled faster than light. In the markets of broken colonies, slaves whispered. The humans fought them, they said. The humans did not bow. Children repeated the story like a song. Elders spoke of it with trembling hands. Species long beaten into silence now dared to dream again. The myth of invincibility was gone, and in its place grew something far more dangerous to tyrants: hope. The alien fleets, once proud banners of domination, now drifted in shame. Their retreat burned into memory. Soldiers who once laughed at humanity now lowered their eyes. Commanders who claimed God's blood now tasted fear in their mouths. And the High Admiral, furious and broken, sat in silence. His pride shattered, his words hollow. For what could he say, when his greatest fortress had fallen to one small ship? Inside the Guardian, the crew walked through ruined halls, walls scorched, lights dim, air thin, yet every step was filled with pride. They had endured the impossible. They had faced the storm and still stood. Though wounded, though weary, they had not fallen, and their scars were proof of victory. The captain gathered his people, his voice soft, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. "We are not legends," he said, "we are only human." But in those words lay the truth. For humanity did not need to be gods to win. They only needed to be themselves, enduring, stubborn, unyielding, and that was enough. The galaxy began to speak of them in stories, not of weapons alone, but of spirit. "They fight like fire," the enslaved whispered. "They endure like stone," the free declared. And the name humanity carried weight, no longer dismissed, no longer ignored, but feared, respected, and remembered. The Guardian drifted homeward, its engines tired, its crew dreaming of Earth. Green fields, blue skies, the warmth of sunlight, the simple things that made them fight. They had not sought glory, they had not sought empire, they had only sought to live free, and in that pursuit, they had given freedom to others. The Invincible Armada, once eternal, now carried cracks its soldiers whispered at night. Its commanders doubted in silence. They still had numbers, still had power, but they no longer had belief, and without belief, even the strongest empire begins to crumble. In hidden corners of the galaxy, resistance sparked. Small groups rose, inspired by the human defiance. They painted the symbol of a lone ship on their walls. They whispered the word Guardian, and they waited for the day when humanity would rise again, not as conquerors but as defenders. As a flame in the darkness on the bridge of the Guardian, the captain stood one last time, watching the stars pass slowly, his ship broken but alive, his crew scarred but unbroken. The war was not over, but the first battle had been won, and the galaxy would never be the same. The alien armada claimed invincibility, but humanity proved them wrong. The storm had been met by fire, and fire does not bow. Fire spreads, and in that fire a new dawn rose across the stars.